Hi everyone, it's Stephanie Weaver here in the Blue and Yellow Kitchen where cooking meets culture. Microwave Boys here on the camera, and my guest today is Nicole Tsong. Hi Nicole, how are you?
I'm great. Hi Stephanie.
It's great to see you, and thank you for wearing things to match the Blue and Yellow Kitchen. I appreciate that. Nicole's the author of a new book, 24 Ways to Move More, and we're going to talk about that because I thought it's kind of coming to the end of the year. 2020 has been a rough year for lots of reasons, and I know it's been challenging for people just in terms of self-care, and I thought this book was such a great accessible way to challenge ourselves to get more movement in our life. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us what the book's about. I gave a very brief overview, but tell us more closely what the book's about.
Sure. The book is really around how to move your body in more ways, more frequently. And so it's designed to be a year-long experience for you. And every month, there's 2 new ways to move for you to try on, and just a simple description of my own experience doing those movements, and then how you can start to incorporate that in your life. And really, the timing of it has worked out really well because the idea is really how to be more creative in movement in general. And I think a lot of people this year have felt a little bit stymied in what they've normally been doing. And so the book is really here to help you to start to incorporate new movements and try different things. And I think it's really actually been turning out to be great timing for that.
That's awesome. And I just want to showcase that it is actually, there's a workbook element to it. She asks you questions, you can write in here so you can use it kind of as a journal. And I loved that made it feel even more accessible. Like it's not a fitness expert telling you what to do. It's you deciding kind of what works for you, how does that feel, each of these and think of them as experiments, things that you might want to try that you've never thought of trying. Do you consider yourself a fitness expert, Nicole?
Oh, God, no. I definitely talk about this in the book as well. So this is I'll tell you a little bit of my backstory. So as a kid, I was active. You know, I did ice skating and ballet and those kinds of sports and tennis. But when I was an adult, I had moved actually to Anchorage, and I used to be a journalist. And so I was there, and I would hike in the summer, and I would ski in the winter, but there'd be all these shoulder seasons where I was really feeling, I was on the elliptical for like 20 minutes at a time, and I really hated the gym. And so when I moved to Seattle, I decided, which is where I live, I decided to do more yoga. And then that's really where I started to work more deeply into movement and feel much more connected to myself and to my body through movement. But I still by no means would ever have considered myself a fitness expert. And during that time I was working for the Seattle Times, and I left to teach yoga, and they said, hey, why don't you write a fitness column for us? And I said, I don't do fitness, I do yoga. And they're like, we think that's a great qualification. And so that's really how I started to write a column called Fit for Life for the Seattle Times. And so I think a lot of people might think of me that way, but I really don't think of my background as in fitness at all. It is actually really around movement, moving your body, feeling connected to your body, which is my background more than anything. But then over time, I wrote the column for 6 years, and I did try more than 300 classes. So some people might put me in the category of expert, but I just consider myself like a normal person who likes fun movement stuff, and that's what I did for 6 years.
That's great. And so the idea for the book came out of that column, is that right?
Yes, it did. Yeah, one of my friends who's a movement person said, well, why don't you turn it into a book, your column, when it ended? And I thought, that seems like a really good idea. And I actually did write previously 2 yoga books. And so my publisher was interested, and we said, all right, let's do this. Let's make this a really fun, accessible thing. And part of it was because I would get readers emailing me and saying, I can never do what you do. And I'm a teacher. And so I was like, no, we can do this. And so let's get everybody to move their bodies more, because that's really something that I care very much about, is getting people connected to themselves. Because for me, that's opened my life in many different ways into my purpose and my calling. And so I really want people to have that experience of feeling connected to themselves.
That's great. So how did you end up organizing the book?
So the book is organized to really be flexible in terms of where you live and seasons. And so the winter seasons are kind of grouped together for those who have snow, and some people don't have snow, so they might not do as many of those winter activities. And then otherwise, every month, I try to just do a combination of maybe something that's a little bit more intense, and then something that's more accessible, and then mixing it up as much as possible so that there was a contrast of some sort. So like the first month is walking and cross-functional fitness. And so if you've ever done those kinds of classes, they're pretty intense. walking is a really foundational movement to me in general for anybody, which is why I put it in the first chapter. It's something you can do pretty much anywhere you're at. But the whole book is designed like that you can really, the whole goal is to try both movements every month. And if you're at a point where like, I don't have time or that's not really possible, there's hopefully at least one movement every month that you can take on.
Great. And so the idea is you try 2 new things each month, and then you decide at the end of the year that which ones you like, or you maybe keep some throughout the year, or how do you think people are using the book? Are you getting feedback yet?
You know, I haven't heard yet from people how they're using it. The whole idea, though, is really actually to keep trying new things. Because one of the great muscles I developed during writing my column, which was every week I tried something different and new, is this idea of trying something new and being an adult and being open to trying something new pretty much on a weekly basis. At the beginning of my column, I was always mildly terrified going in because I was like, I don't know how to do whatever this martial art is or this dance class is. But then I found over time, the more I did it, I actually became a very adaptable person. Like I was really fine with being a beginner, and I was really good with going into new classes and being okay with not knowing what I was doing. And so the idea is actually to develop that skill set a little bit, that as adults, that we can try new things and that we can do it through movement. And to me, I have to say that it's helped me a lot in the pandemic, that it's just this availability and potential to adapt to change and to be good with change, try new things on, and not have it be a super dramatic thing, but just actually like, oh, okay, I'm going to roll with it. And so the whole idea is actually to really just give it a chance for a month and then move on. And then at the end of the year, you can assess and see, like, I like those 3 things or I like those 2 things, and then to keep going with that for yourself.
Yeah, I loved it. Did feel really accessible. And so for those of you watching who don't know, I have 2 chronic conditions that I manage. I have migraine that sometimes presents as vertigo, and I have, I would say, like a mild ongoing challenge with fibromyalgia. So a lot of things that are in this book are not something I'm going to be able to do simply because of the way that my body overreacts to exercise. But when I worked on the migraine relief plan, I actually didn't even call it exercise. And like Nicole, I call it movement, because I think exercise has become such a loaded word and working out has become such a loaded word. And those of us who deal with chronic conditions, maybe we can't do those things. So we feel like, well, then I shouldn't even bother to try. And what I loved about this is that you have such an encouraging tone. You don't seem like some, intense person that I could never keep up with. Like, I would love to go for a walk with you if I was up in Seattle. And so I would just encourage you, even if you don't feel like you're an athlete or an exercise person. I have a friend who's like, I hate to even move at all. And I'm trying to encourage her, well, what if you just went for a walk and texted me after you went for a little walk? And because I know she'll feel better if she does. And so I think that's what I loved about the tone of this, aside from the kind of workbook and try a bunch of different things idea. So thank you for setting that up for us. That's great.
Well, and the idea for me really is that it is at any age. There's my mom is in the book, and she's 79. And so and she walks 10,000 steps a day. And there is that element of like, how can you find a thing that works for you? Like yoga's in there. And if you can't do traditional yoga, like in the sense of a class, you could do chair yoga, or you could do restorative yoga, right? That there's actually ways for everybody to do this. I think one of the things we forget, because we get into this fitness box, is that your body is actually designed for movement. Like that's actually how it is foundationally. And it is actually a joyful experience. But for many people, they've had experiences where it wasn't joyful or it wasn't fun. And so then they kind of like, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore. But to me, it's like, well, if it's not fun, you just haven't found the thing that's fun for you. And so you just need to try more things until you can find something that's fun. Because to me, when it's fun, you'll do it. If it's not fun and it feels like a chore, like the elliptical for me, like I'm not into the elliptical, I just won't do it. But if I like it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll totally go. And so the idea is to connect back into that experience of like connecting to your body is an inherently fun and joyful experience, and then that can actually bring you into a new space mentally to start to connect to yourself, feel more connected to purpose and calling, and whatever that might look like for you, right? Being there for your family or doing something with your work life. Like I'm a coach, and so I work with a lot of people on what is that connection, and it always has to start with your body and yourself.
Great. We're going to make what I'm calling a Shamrock Smoothie. So Nicole and I have kind of conferred, and so she mentions kind of rehydration and nutrition after workouts, and so that's kind of how we found the place that we could go with with a smoothie. What do you like to put in yours, Nicole, before I make this one?
You know, I like what you're doing with banana, frozen blueberries, or blueberries are often something I like to add in, and then greens for sure. Because for me, I always do something within 30 minutes of working out. I always have something. For me, it's often just like eating a banana and maybe a little jerky, but just like that refueling with your glucose and just getting your body back on track. And so I like anything that helps me with both the protein and then also the carbohydrates.
Great. So what I'm going to make is, so I've got an alternate nut milk. So this happens to be the Trader Joe's unsweetened almond cashew macadamia nut, which is a really nice creamy nut milk. I've got 2 tablespoons of shelled hemp seeds, and that's for protein, and also add some body to it. I put in a teaspoon of chia seeds, and I can show you what each of these look like. I'll come on up here. So you can see what those seeds look like. So the chia seeds are going to mostly just add thickening. They do add some protein, and then the hemp will add a lot of protein. Then I've got a collagen powder, so grass-fed collagen, but you can use your favorite protein powder, and I will post the recipe right in the comments for this one. If you're someone that's more keto and you want more fat, healthy fat, you could add coconut oil. I'm not going to. I've got a frozen banana, and my tip with that is I like to cut them up, put them on a lined cookie sheet, and freeze them, and then double bag them so they don't make everything in the freezer smell like bananas. But then they're ready to go, and they're easy to blend. And then the kale, it's about a cup of kale, and I like to microwave it just for a couple minutes with some water and then let it cool or drain it out. The reason for that is that kale is a lot more bioavailable if it's not raw. Especially if there's some fat with it, our body's able to take about way more nutrients in the kale, so that's the little tip about that. And then if you find, and then some ice cubes, then if you find that you really like making smoothies, what you can do is mix up all the powders in individual little jars, like baby food jars or a jar like this. Then you have a week's worth of smoothie powder ready to go, and it just makes the whole process a lot quicker if you're in a hurry. Any thoughts before I turn the blender on, Nicole?
I love that. I'm getting great smoothie tips here. It's the best.
Yeah, so you want to put the whole ingredients, the liquid in first, then the whole ingredients, then the powders on top. And then powders or the nuts or whatever. And then I'm going to add a tiny bit of stevia, which is completely optional, and a little bit of peppermint extract. So if you have fresh mint available, that's great. But a little bit of peppermint extract just really makes this kind of shamrocky. So maybe like 1/8 of a teaspoon, not even a full 1/4 teaspoon, unless you really like mint, then you can add more. And liquid stevia, maybe 2 or 3 drops. I don't want to taste the stevia. I'm just trying to up the sweetness and kind of chill out the kale a little bit, which the banana helps with too. Okay, so I'm going to turn the blender on. So one thing you can do is when you turn the blender off, you'll hear if there's any chunks that are still making noise. That means you need to turn it back to low and then move it up to high. Now, if you don't have a high-speed blender, it still works. I would just maybe blend everything before you add the ice cubes. Maybe add the ice cubes one at a time so you're not making that engine work super hard. I hear that your dog is being naughty right now, Nicole.
I was like, she's been so quiet all morning, but of course, as soon as I get on here,
Yep.
she's like, oh, I'm going to bark the whole time.
Yep, that's what our dog does too. It's so funny and annoying, but cute. Okay, so I'm going to pour this. So you can see it's nice and got a nice thickness and body to it. It's got that beautiful bright green color. I'm going to show Nicole here. So there we go.
Oh, looks so delicious.
So pretty, and I've got a pretty straw. So I'm gonna. Yeah, so it's really nicely minty, but not overly strong. I don't actually even taste the banana or the kale. It's really more of a. So if you like the Shamrock shake from McDonald's, this is like a super healthy alternative to that. You know, the only sugar in it is the natural sugar from the banana. Banana's also super high in potassium, and I'm on a low sodium diet and on a diuretic for my vertigo, so I have to make sure I have enough potassium in my diet. So bananas are a fantastic source of potassium, and again, like you said, the glycogen for post-workout rehydration. Now, I don't do workouts, but I might have this as a meal. Like, so on a hot day, this is a great breakfast for me. It just feels like it feels like it works really well in terms of being digested, and it just is a really tasty and a treat. It also feels like a treat, so it's kind of a nice combination there. So what else should readers know, and what adjustments do you think people would have to make, given that we're still in a pandemic and will probably still be in a pandemic in 2021, in terms of some of the recommendations in the book?
Yeah, I always tell people to really think about, a lot of my column was really just honestly research and looking around. And I feel like, even reflecting on the book now, 75% of it for sure you can still do during the pandemic, whether it's home Zoom classes or it's just being outside or trying things a little differently. And so I would just encourage people to look through. And sometimes for me, because I tried 300, I'm like, 24 is not that many. And I'm like, 24 is actually a lot. There's a lot of options and there's a lot of choices, and that you can just really have fun with it. And then just be open. I think that's the biggest thing, is to be open and just start to shift in there. And some of those questions are designed to help you just be like, like, what's stopping me from trying a new class? Like, why not? And I actually think the pandemic in certain ways is even better because you can do it from home. Like, normally you might have to go to a class and try something new, but now you have the privacy of your own home to really just be a little more adventurous around how movement fits into your life.
Yeah. And I love that. And when I turned 50, I decided I was going to say yes to as many things as I possibly could. And it really does shift. I think it really helps our aging process to be someone who is always trying new things, who is making a show in her kitchen, for example, which a year ago I did not know I was going to be doing. And so, just all of those ways that we become more flexible, physically flexible, but also emotionally flexible, I think are really great life skills. So you can buy the book wherever books are sold. If you can support an independent bookstore, that's fantastic. Of course, it's available online. And if you want to check out more offerings that Nicole has, because she is a coach, so she is available virtually to assist you, you can find her at Nicole, Nicole Tsong, TSONG.com. You can follow me at SWeaverMPH, and if you know anyone that you think would like the book or the smoothie, please do share this and tag them. We really appreciate it when you do that. Nicole, thank you so much for being here in the Blue and Yellow Kitchen today.
Such an honor. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Bye, guys.